You see, something is going to happen. Something wonderful.
My God, it's full of stars.
Hey everyone, welcome to the NY Patriot Show. Today, for all you listeners, we got the amazing Monica Perez from Deep Dives with Monica Perez. If you haven't heard of her by now, I can't see how that's possible because she's been around for 10 years. And as she called herself, she is the pod mother.
Various and sundry, not everything, but we've got a few offshoots. I've got spin-offs. There are a few spin-offs out there. Union of the Unknowns, among other things.
I loved it, though. I literally had to stop laughing before I hit record when she said pod mother. I was like, what the fuck?
Yeah, we've been having a lot of fun. So
yeah, that was
bring
great.
that to the air.
Thank you. But thank you so much for coming on again. I had you on, well, you came on the Spiritual Gangsters with me and Teresa. I had an amazing time. And then you mentioned something about Malaysia 370. And I was like, oh, I think I had just got done watching the Netflix series maybe a week or two prior to that. And I was like, that was really interesting. And none of it really seemed to make any fucking sense at all. And when you had mentioned you covered it, I was like, oh, that's got to be solid. So I really wanted to have you on. So enough out of me in introducing the topic. I'll introduce the guests, and I'll let everybody, you let everybody know where they can find you and who you are if they don't know who you are yet.
Sure. So I have a show, Deep Dives with Monica Perez. I do some interviews, but I also try to dig into really important topics of the day in a way that like regular news doesn't do it. But in the day before the internet shut down on February 14th, 2018, we can tell you, I called it that day. That was the day. It was Parkland. And I had to do a show. I had a radio show at the time, and I had to do a show that Saturday. And I could always find on the internet, on YouTube videos, like crowdsource, whatever, the real story. I was really good at figuring out the true story of things that were happening, usually false flags. And on that event, I went to YouTube, and absolutely everything was totally like mainstream scrubbed. There was no, like you were talking like 1,000 kids, all of whom had cell phones inside that building. Not a second of video got out. And I realized that the internet was dead that day. 6 months later, I was taken off WordPress, so a lot of my stuff was lost. But prior to that, I could go through basically any false flag operation and crack the code. I mean, I did them all. And one big one that I did was MH370. And in my reporting on that, I did a blog and I would do a show on it. It was within 2 weeks, I had the entire thing. Like I could tell you where MH370 was. And it went on, that search went on for months.
Well, I mean, I guess it was kind of like known, but I mean, what made you, when you first heard it, did you think it was like just a situation? Was that enough for you to be like, I got to look into that? Or did you come across something that made you think like, oh, this might be shady?
No, I something like that, so my journey, my conspiranoid journey started, like I got on the radio in 2011, 2012, and I did not believe that 9/11 was an inside job. So like I was in there, I was like, I don't believe 9/11 was an inside job. Then like in 2012, 2013, 2014, like Sandy Hook happened, the Boston Marathon bombing, even what was happening in Ukraine. Like these were stories that eventually peeled the scales off my eyes. And then I saw, I just would not believe in 9/11 because I didn't think people were that evil. So like, I didn't think Dick Cheney would be a part of that, but definitely, obviously now I think he like picks his hearts out on like the high school playground. He's like, I like that kid. Like that's how bad I think he is now.
Yeah. Oh.
So when a plane goes down, like that's rare. And it was a Boeing 777, like that's extremely rare. And in this country, like basically never, ever happens. And I'm immediately alerted because in the past couple of years, in the past like 10, 15 years, there have been basically no deaths on US run commercial jets. So I was briefly afraid of flying until I saw the stats. There's like none. So the few cases where there were a few deaths, one was like a Southwest airline flight. I don't believe that happened. Like Marty Martinez was the only guy who was interviewed by anybody. They were all breathing the air without oxygen masks. They were FaceTiming, like face Facebook living, like when that first came out, and I was like, this did not happen. Like some chick did not blow out the fucking window. It didn't. And they had like the pilot was a female Sully. I'm like, female pilot, so rare. And she had done like, she was like a poster child for the airline anyway. She had done PR stuff. Like, I just did not believe that story. So every story that I saw of some death on a commercial run US jet was fishy. The first one in the past, like 15 years, was a commuter jet up to Buffalo where a 9/11 widow was on that plane, and she was going for her birthday or an anniversary or something. She was going to go speak in an event. So that's like haystacking, I would think. My guess would be they brought that plane down to, I think Lockerbie was haystacking too. Like haystacking is when you're assassinating someone, but you kill so many other people that they can't actually identify who the person was who was the target. So there were 100 people on a plane. Lockerbie, so like they want to take somebody out, but it would just be too obvious if that person were assassinated. So I'm super sus when it comes to plane incidents anyway. And so this one I looked into, and I assume my first thought was like they took it down for some reason. But ultimately my conclusion is, after all these years of reflecting on it, and I did have to brush up on like the basics and what like really convinced me back at the time. But what I think ultimately happened was that there were lithium ion batteries in the cargo and that they blew up. And right around when it hit altitude, I don't know why, I don't know what the mechanism is. About a year later, all lithium ion batteries in the holds of planes were banned. I think it was already a ban here, but it wasn't a ban there. It was going from Malaysia to China. And I just think that's what happened. And I can tell you why.
You know what's funny? I'm just thinking about the news in New York. I mean, you probably wouldn't notice because you're not in New York anymore. But
not anymore.
I could tell you, at least on the local news, that's really the only thing I'll ever put on. They probably at least once or twice a week are always talking about lithium batteries starting fires.
Wow.
It's constant to where they're talking about wanting to ban them sometimes on these bikes.
There was a horrible fire on a boat. I used to scuba dive from time to time. So I've been on what's called a liveaboard, a boat like where you go to sleep and you get up and you scuba dive at night, in the morning, whatever. There was a scuba dive, I believe it was a diving boat off the coast of California, and 22 people, I think, were on that boat, and they all had their phones plugged in. And the boat, I could cry thinking about it. The boat lit on fire and they all were trapped and died right off the coast of California a couple of years ago. And that was the phone batteries. I mean, yeah, they're dangerous. And
who would ever think that you're going to burn to death?
It was
in water.
Yes, exactly. That is so weird. I know. I think that's weird too. But the horror of it, I can't. Like, if you let your mind wander to what those people went through, it's just
horrible. I can't even think of that.
Yeah.
I'd be thinking the same thing. I'm literally out in water and I'm burning to death.
No,
like, what the
never
fuck?
Think of it. And so yeah, there's definite danger there. I personally believe that's what happened. And so what I mean, I can recap. I can just tell you like what they say happened, what like the official story was, as far as I recall it. I mean, I was trying to bone up, but there was a lot of details. Hopefully I get it right. And then I remember the important points that I did at the time. Luckily I had a blog post that debunks what they were saying. And so I feel like I know where it went down. So what happened was this flight MH370 took off out of Malaysia, Kuala Lumpur airport. I think it was like around, let's say, midnight Malaysia time, something like that, maybe a little after. And it flew for a while. It reached altitude, and the pilot said goodnight at 1:19 a.m. their time, which is like 8 hours after Greenwich Mean Time. So I think it was like 17:19 by like the universal standard time for airplanes, but we'll talk about Malaysia time. It's like 1:19 to say goodnight. And 2 minutes later, if you look at the data, it's called Flight Radar 24. There's a video that shows it basically altitude went to 0, and it was a 121. It just fucking blinked out.
Wow, really? 121.
So at that time,
do you have a one that like, I know this isn't your wheelhouse, even though I hate using that word. This isn't your thing. But like, did you ever like even think about like the numbers and everything on the plane? Just seeing weird 777.
Yeah.
At flight 17.
Yes, with this, because I concluded that this one was an absolute accident. Any numbers that went into it up front, like I'm going to call that a coincidence.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
anything that's like a planned event, like 9/11, I think that it does seem to me that some of these numbers, you just can't get away from the occult significance. You know, the problem with the numerology stuff is that people will mix systems. So you'll talk to somebody about numbers and they will say, well, under this system, that number means this. And then the next set of numbers means this under this other system. And I'm like, if you're going to pick and choose systems, like there's no end.
That's one of the things I will even admit when it comes to gematria. If you're not lining it up across the board with a couple of things, I won't even really pay attention to it.
Exactly.
But like another reason why it even caught my mind, and then I'll let you go. But
no, go ahead,
I was doing something with.
It helps.
I was doing something with the 17th, the date the 17th, and I think I did 6 months out of the year. I did 3 months of just going through things that happened on the 17th throughout history on those months, and then I did another set of 3 months after the fact. The first 3 months I did, though, I don't know what it was. There was a shit ton of plane crashes within those 3 months on the 17th, too, which I thought was fucking weird.
Yeah.
So that's what, you know, and then when I saw the 17 with this, I was just like, oh, what the fuck?
Yeah, I it seems to me like when I've looked into plane crashes, I would say plenty of them are planned, like, which is fucked up. So you can, really. I mean, you can attach numbers to that. Yeah. Do I think like the number thing is actually mystical coming down from above? I'm not there yet. Oh, yeah. And if it were, then you could attribute it to any event. But I think they use it in their occult practices. Yes, I do. For sure. Does it emerge organically? Yeah. Some numbers do, like they say those Fibonacci sequence and stuff. Like
I was gonna say, cool. Yeah. Sometimes I think it's just you're just seeing the code of the universe in front of you, and that's all it is.
Yeah, and the universe is just unbelievable. Like I'm like I think about how the universe works, and I end up at God. Because it's just so complicated. It's so complicated. I'm like, you can make your shit up, but you're always getting back to God. I don't know.
I don't know God. Yeah.
So there are two kinds of people. One that says God, and the other that says anything but God. It's like, well, you have to just leave it open. So I don't understand the really mystical stuff, but like in this case, I wasn't even looking at numbers because I don't think it was intentional, which is funny because my conspiracy theory is simply that every other theory is a conspiracy theory and there was no conspiracy. So the whole Netflix thing, as well as the official narrative, are all conspiracy theories, none of which I buy. I just think awesome. It blew up.
I love it.
Yeah, I just think it blew up, which is amazing for me because I see conspiracies everywhere. But this one just blew up. So at 121, in my opinion, it blew up over the South China Sea. And there's 4 reasons I think that. And then there's more reasons I can say it's a cover up. But the 4 reasons is there were a bunch of islanders underneath it, at that time, 7 islanders in Malaysia or whatever, and heard a really loud boom at what they said was 120. And they reported it and they heard that there was a plane crash. And they're like, oh, we heard it blow up. That was one thing. There was a New Zealand oil rig worker. This, you are not going to believe. I'll tell you, this one's so good that I'll save it for the 4th one. The other 2 things are just that. The other 2 things was the islanders of Vietnam said that they saw debris, but it was too dark. So they sent a boat out at dawn, but by then they couldn't find it. China reported, I believe it was China reported 2 oil slicks, which would have been consistent with the 2 engines, but it was over water. So, you know, I don't think once a plane is exploded into a jillion pieces, it floats because it's made of metal. Yeah. So they're like, well, we would have seen it. It's like, not after 6 hours, you wouldn't have. But so China's reports, Vietnam's reports, and those. But this is what a guy from New Zealand, an oil rig worker, wrote. His name was Michael Jerome McKay. He wrote his passport number. He's from New Zealand, and he wrote this. Gentlemen, I believe I saw the Malaysian Airlines plane come down. The timing is right. I tried to contact the Malaysian and Vietnam officials because it was between Malaysia and Vietnam several days ago, but I do not know if my message has been received. I am on the oil rig Sangha Mercure off Vung Tau. The surface location of the observation is latitude 822, blah, 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 longitude 108.42, and the actual latitude and longitude where it was last seen on radar, I happen to have this written down already, was 6.93, and the longitude was 103.59. I don't know about these things, so that could be really far away or it could be really close. It kind of feels close. So he says, I observed what I think was the plane burning at high altitude and on a compass bearing of 265 to 275 degrees from our surface location. I mean, this guy writes some details. He says it's very difficult to judge the distance, but I'd say 50 to 70 kilometers along the compass bearing 260 to 275. While I observed the burning plane, it appeared to be in one piece. The surface sea current at our location is 2 to 2.3 knots in a direction of 225 to 230 degrees. The wind direction has been northeast to east-northeast, averaging 15 to 20 knots. So he's writing all this stuff down, clearly a sailor, because he wants to help them find it.
Yeah.
So he goes on to say, from when I first saw the burning plane until the flames went out, which was still at a high altitude, was 10 to 15 seconds long. There was no lateral movement. So it was either coming towards us, it was either stationary, falling straight down, or going away from our location, but there was no lateral movement. And he says the general position of the observation was perpendicular, southwest of the normal flight paths we see in contrails that pass overhead every day. And it was at a lower altitude than normal flight paths, which it must have lost altitude first because it was at 35,000 feet when it went down. I don't know. Anyway, it says on the compass bearing 275, intersecting the normal flight paths and at a normal altitude, but further away. Good luck, Michael Jerome McKay. So I have thought a lot about that letter, and after the years have marinated, whatever, I feel like that is absolutely 100% authentic. Absolutely. I think that guy was spot on. He saw that plane and he reported it in great detail, and it would have helped them find it. So what happened? They
You know what's funny? Real quick, did you watch the Netflix thing?
No, there's been this whole rash of Netflix false flag cover-ups recently. I couldn't watch the Kaczynski thing, Boston Marathon bombing, MH370. There's like so many of them. I cannot watch them.
They did have somebody on there that I think was trying to push the issue that they thought it fell in the water too in China over by there.
Yeah,
and they seem to play her off as like the crazy conspiracy theorist, almost as the person saying.
Yeah, so they have to put in. I read about that documentary. I didn't watch it, but I read about it, and like the critique was that it promotes all of these conspiracy theories, and for me, they do that to kind of discredit the actual true thing. And I feel like I saw what they were doing and I figured it out. And what they kind of suppressed information right out of the gate. They probably knew what would happen, what happened. And if it were a lithium ion battery explosion and there's like 279 people on the plane, like that could have been considered. And I think it would have been considered negligent. If it's negligent, like the amount that each of those people could collect would have been enormous. And that's all, like you might not care about Malaysia, but usually Lloyd's of London or some big insurance company underwrites all the insurance policies in the world. So it's like just a very limited group of people are going to be exposed to that. Like a big insurance company is going to be exposed to that. But if it's an act of terror or an act of God, they are not liable, like personal injury wise, to the same extent. It's limited. So I think they kind of probably knew or didn't know and didn't, needed to, for internal reasons, investigate what happened because they were not going to tell the truth about it if it was going to create too much liability for them. So there are a few data points that indicate where it was right out of the gate. So at 1:07 a.m., So it was before the explosion. What's called ACARS, I forget what it stands for, but I'm sure I have it here somewhere. ACARS with data transmission was sent. So every 30 minutes, there's an ACARS with data transmission sent. And that gives information like, I am this plane, I'm headed in this direction, I'm at this altitude, blah, blah, blah. Every 30 minutes that happens at 1:19. So that was at 1:07. So you would expect another one at 1:37. At 1:19, one of the pilots said, good night. He said, all right, good night at 1:19. At 1:21, the flight disappeared from radar. And at 1:37, ACARS with data was not received. So that's exactly what you would have expected to happen.
Yeah.
And that's when you would have said that thing just disappeared. There are two reasons that we are told we're absolutely certain it did not disappear at that time, that something really crazy happened. Because for that thing to not transmit at 1:37, like you would literally have had to take the ceiling panel down off the pilot's compartment, the cockpit, and crawl around in there. And they're not even sure, like experts have said, they're not even sure they could do it. And so that's when the theory was that the pilot was a terrorist. Definitely was not.
Oh yeah, on the Netflix, I think they showed that too. They're like, if they crawled into that thing with all that stuff, like you'd have to actually know what the fuck you're doing, probably.
And that kind of timing and without tools, like
or
those
somebody
are not
catching
panels.
you. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if you could do it even in flight, like, and in that amount of time, like at 1:19, he's saying good night. So it would have had to been in 16 seconds or 16 minutes or whatever it was.
This is like another Idaho 4. Have you been following that?
No.
Supposedly this kid stabbed the shit out of everybody and cleaned up all his blood in like 16 fucking minutes. It's like, how the fuck did that happen?
Yeah. I stopped doing a lot of this code cracking because I think a lot of it is kind of meant to waste our time. They give enough of it for people like you and me to like be derailed by it. And if you don't know they're up to no good by now, I'm not going to waste my time trying to convince you. Yeah. And I cannot come up with incontrovertible proof anymore since February 14th, 2018, because they just cover this stuff up too well. Yeah. So once they close the internet completely, it's just not even worth it. So anything before then, I did it, and we can go over it and I can prove to you that they're up to no good. But this stuff, I haven't been following the blow by blows, but yes, a lot of it just defies common sense.
And like, I know you were mentioning the pinging. What do you think is up with that? I'm not trying to get ahead of you too far.
Yeah, no, that's the thing. Like there were two things that,
But like with you remember, I think they even used, see, now I'm wondering, like, let's say your theory is totally right, which I do think is totally possible. Do you think that, you remember at one point, I think they start saying, oh, well, there was another equipment that was on there that we could ping and see where it went. And then starts telling you it went somewhere else. Do you think that was actually bullshit then?
To the whole entire story.
All right. So I'll just let you get into it.
My blog post is cracking the code on Malaysia 370. The ping is the thing. Yeah. Like that's the real thing that cracks the code. So for two reasons, and the ping is one of them, they tell us that the thing kept flying. It did not just fucking drop out of the sky when I told you all the reasons why I think it did. One is they said an hour later on a military radar, there was some unidentified blip.
Yeah, that's right.
In a completely wrong place. I mean, I think that was probably some kid's birthday party balloon. Like, what the fangul? So it's so stupid. It's not even believable. But that's what they say. Okay, then they came out and said, after the fact, like days after the fact, they said, oh, we got this 8 cars without data, like a ping off a satellite. So a plane will send all its data every 30 minutes, but it'll also just ping, I'm here, but it doesn't tell anything about where it is or how fast it's traveling, nothing. It just identifies itself to a satellite. There's only 13 satellites like this in the world. So if you ping a satellite, it's kind of like your cell phone tower. You're gonna grab the cell phone tower that's nearest to you, and that'll probably have a lot more data in it. But, wherever you are, it's going to, the way it works with the ping. Okay, so what? So I'll tell you about the pings in a second.
Oh,
like
real quick. I
works.
just want to throw this in. Something that people are saying in the chat. This just blew my mind. There's an episode of The Twilight Zone, I guess, called Nightmare at 20,000 Feet. It was an early
with William Shatner.
It was an early episode from 2000, they're saying, and supposedly before the plane crashed, he asked the pilot not to say goodnight.
Ooh. Before, because this was in 2014.
That's weird.
That is cosmic.
Fucking weird. That's cosmic. I love it. That's cosmic.
You get into the real occult stuff.
All right, sorry. So now go back into your pings.
No, that's right.
I
So
saw
the
that and I
ping-
was like, I have to say this.
Okay, so the ping, what happened was there was a ping. I believe let's see when that ping was. I'm going to say that ping was at 119. This just generic, I'm here ping. Maybe it's 111. All right. So, okay, every hour from an antenna, a handshake, they call it. This is a different kind of ping. It's a handshake. It says, I don't know, let's just say that it was at 1:11 a.m. I can't remember. I can't find exactly the minute. Doesn't matter. So this handshake thing beams a signal up to the satellite just to say, I'm here at every hour, which is different from the thing that gives more information. Just identifies itself every hour to the satellite. The last one was like at 1:11. And that was it. The last one was 1:11. But the information is so hard to gather from that ping that it can tell the angle. It can tell the angle from which the ping came. So the satellite can detect what angle it's coming at, right? So here's your satellite and here's the angle of your ping. So if you're really high, if you're in the Concorde and you're at like 60,000 feet, that angle will be very close. That a ping coming in at that angle will be very close to your satellite. But if you're at 35,000 feet, if you're further away at that angle, you would have to be at a lower altitude. Okay. So it basically, it divines, I kind of tried to make a little picture of it. So I'm trying to show that. So if you ping from 35,000 feet, which is where it was, up to your satellite, that's going to be on a straight line that other planes pinging at different altitudes will also come in at. And that satellite can't tell the difference. It can't tell the difference. So if you look at the satellite ping as a circle over the Earth around the satellite, you'll see a ping coming in at 35,000 could come from anywhere geographically, just as long as it's an angle. It's like it creates a cone. Gotcha. So if your plane is higher, it's going to be closer to that satellite. The circle is going to be narrower. And same thing if it's even higher. Okay. But if you continue to travel really far away, so there's only 13 satellites, so you're going to still ping the same satellite, but you're much further away. You're still at 35,000 feet. So if you're going like this away from the satellite, your angle is going to be way steeper. So then your circles are going to be way further apart if you're trying to figure out where they're not going to be, at 40,000 feet, whatever. It's just going to be that circle at 35,000 is going to be further away from that satellite.
Yeah, no, I know exactly what you mean. That would be like I was even thinking recently, like if I was to film something on a building and I wanted to get part of the architecture, it would actually be easier for me to go across the street, even though I'm farther, and zoom in on it. I'd get a better angle. Yes. I get what you're saying with the whole angles and shit. Yeah,
you can tell. So that was the ping at 1:11 around the satellite. It happened somewhere like. The satellite detected a ping coming in at an angle that indicates that something traveling at 35,000 miles away would be anywhere along that circle. But we know that exactly where it was at that time. That's where it was still on radar. So we know that it was there. Okay. So then they started coming up with this picture. So I got this all off of archive.org because when I got taken down from WordPress, they erased all my media. I got my text, but they erased all my pictures. So anyway, so you see how this is an early picture, and it showed like they released this pretty quickly after the fact, like maybe within a week. So you can see it's showing that that's where the plane was when it sent out that ping. But it could have been, other planes sent the same kind of ping, but they would have been at different altitudes. Gotcha. So that concentric circle is just what one ping can mean. So a ping that looked like that could be anything in that cone. Okay.
Gotcha.
Then after a while, like a month later, a couple of weeks later, they said, oh, this is what they just fucking changed the story. And they said, oh, there were 8 pings. There were 8 pings. So those are 8 circles. And they said there were 8 pings. They were like, oh yeah, they just kept sending out pings for 8 hours. I'm like, that's not the same picture was used to say that those were the 8 pings. And it's like, there's no way because in my article, I said, like, I don't know why they still only released 1 ping. They could have released more pings, and it wouldn't have looked like concentric circles if it was still at 35,000 feet. It would not have been exactly equidistant away as it gets further away. It's kind of complicated.
And now all this pinging stuff is, besides the last, really the only one that the plane did itself, all these extra pings are technically going by cargo that was on the plane, correct?
Well, it's an antenna that's on the back of the plane.
Oh, because I thought they even said that they got pings off of some kind of equipment that was a company that was on the plane. I think even had something that was pinging as well.
Well,
and they tried using that as like a source.
It's called Inmarsat data. Inmarsat data. They started making shit up. Like after a while.
Yeah, I mean that could be bullshit too. Maybe I'm confused. But.
So as I was like reading on, I was like, they're just saying that's not true. Like I really immersed myself. And this was one of the ones where I was getting like professional trolls, like definitely, intelligence saying like, oh, I know all about flying and I know all about planes. And I worked at the, air traffic control, and they would argue with me. And I was so like, when you just throw yourself into something, I was like, no, Inmarsat doesn't work that way. Like I really got it. And I could argue. And my comments used to reflect a lot of that argument. And my Facebook page, people were like, converging on me because they just did not want me to crack the code, but I did. So, okay. So here's an important picture is that, so this circle, that's the actual ping, right? That's the actual ping. And we know exactly where it went out, where it went down, like right around the middle, actually. Yeah. It says the last contact. It's around there. Okay. So then it got really convoluted. So they just pushed that circle out, and then they also, I don't know why I can't remember why actually, I think this was the original ping out here. Okay, so that was the original ping, and it could have been anywhere, but it was in here in this circle. So when they had a search area, what they did for the search area was, I don't know if you remember this, this was one of the pictures I think got lost, got taken down. The search area, you can easily find this picture. The search area was everywhere in this big circle, except for this little circle, which is exactly where the plane was. Exactly where the plane was. So they went out of their way to not find the plane, to not search in the last known location where there were 4 different detailed sightings of that plane going down. And
yeah, what was the excuse? Wasn't there some reason why they started searching like on land? And I'm like, nobody noticed the plane fucking crash in this country?
Yes, they definitely did.
Yeah, I was even like, what? You're sending these people back onto land now.
They said we already looked there, but they really did not already look there. And what they were trying to do was stall until the black box stopped emitting. They probably had the black box. I don't know. Yeah, the black box should send out a beacon. So I never heard about that. But that dies after 30 days. So I think they were just trying to stay outside of beacon range for 30 days.
Oh.
And then they could go wherever, because once that beacon dies, there's no chance you're going to get it back. So now they've made the beacon longer. They went back and like, oh, that was a problem. I was like, it was only a problem because you refused to search in the area where the plane clearly went down. I wish I had that picture. That was one of the ones that they took down of, of the search area. And
See, I
then-
see someone. Oh, I don't know if this is a joke. Might be a joke. Someone said MH370 was landed at Diego Garcia and repurposed for MH17 in Ukraine.
MH17 was another weird one. Like, I've noticed this with false flags is that they kind of recycle. They know it has to be psychological. They know in your mind you have created certain pathways. So in your mind, you think Malaysia Airlines is incompetent, right? Is prone to crashing. So when they had to set up Russia by throwing MH17, which apparently had like cadavers in it, like I think it was like a dummy plane that was deliberately meant to get shot down. I don't even think that was like a real thing. They used Malaysia Airlines, I think, because they knew that people would believe it. Because they already thought Malaysia was so incompetent when it comes to airlines.
Do you think if somebody wanted to use a plane for something, it would be easier to buy one off of somebody illegally than do all this bullshit with the other plane? I mean, do I want to? I mean, you're gonna have to go through months of explaining what happened to this one plane when you can just buy one and repaint it and just use it for what the fuck you wanted to use it for. I mean, that seems like a lot of work just to get a plane.
Okay, I'm gonna tell you the...
I don't know. That's just to me. There's got to be a better way to get a hold of a plane if you need one.
Oh, yes. Definitely. All right, so I want to show you... I don't want you to see all my... Okay. So I don't know if you can see this. Maybe I can... See, I'm not on my own computer here. See the red circle?
Mm-hmm.
It's interrupted just exactly like that was the search area, this big thing. That red area was the search area. This was the ping. And then they eliminated, for some reason, they just erased the ping right over where it was supposed to be. And for no reason at all. And they just decided that was not a place where it was worth searching.
Yeah, I remember even on the some of the things that I've seen, people even talked about like the silliness of like how they just kept denying that one area and just started going like into the mainland and coming up with didn't even the flight pattern change like 2 or 3 times over the course of history?
Which it absolutely cannot do. And they said that based on this unidentified blip on the military. So instead of saying it can't be that plane because that plane wasn't anywhere near there, they said, oh, it must have taken a hard left. Could you imagine? There were so many planes. I still have a video of like the satellite data, flight radar 24. There were so many planes over that area. If a plane just like took a hard left.
Can you make a hard turn at all on a plane?
Yeah, and they would completely see, that would freak people out. That would, you can't, people would notice that. Yes, who was on the plane? That's a good question. So nobody important. That's why I don't think it was haystacking, but they intentionally did not look. And then they came up with, we found the debris on the India. I stopped paying attention to it.
Oh, I was going to ask you about that. Damn.
Yeah, sorry. I couldn't. I mean,
that one dude was finding all this stuff washing up.
Yeah, I don't believe it. And I'm not sure stuff washes up, pieces of metal from the bottom of the ocean.
Yeah, I remember seeing that on the series, and I thought that was actually, just my opinion, I thought it was a little shady. I was like, the odds of this guy just, I'm going to go find these pieces. I think it landed here, and now I have them. Like,
yeah, like the dinosaur hunters. Never in every single culture has like a god idea or an origin myth or whatever. Nobody, there's some giants here and there, but nobody had friggin' dinosaurs, like 80-foot tall lizards, huge bones. Like there were woolly mammoths, yes, but this idea of like dinosaurs, nobody had that in their mythology. And then all of a sudden, the English decided after Darwin that this would have to be like a missing link era, and we were going to go find dinosaur bones, and they found like thousands of them first time out, just out of fucking nowhere. Nobody noticed big giant bones before.
Yeah, because
I don't believe in dinosaurs.
Oh, I don't. Yeah, I do.
Do you?
No, I don't. I'm gonna be honest. People may think I'm crazy, but no, I think that's just, I don't know. This is the thing, too. It's just like if these things... All right, put it even this way. If you were to go look at a list... I know now we're totally off topic. We're on dinosaurs.
No,
if you were to go look at a list...
I'm telling you where it was, and I'm telling you they didn't look there. And everything else is just bullshit after that.
If you had like a list of every different type of dinosaur they even said existed, and then take that and multiply them by like who knows how many were supposedly alive, why are they not finding them when they dig for a fucking foundation across the street from my house? These things should be every fucking where.
And here's my thing, like, what's an 80-foot tall and trees take like 80 years to grow that tall. Like, what are they? Even like bamboo does not grow fast enough to feed. Like, think about how big it is. It's like a whale on land. What is it? Like a whale is just like a whale is full of a medium that is full of food. And it just keeps its mouth open at all times, and it just like food washes through it.
Yeah, like how dinosaur. How was stuff even growing fast enough to keep them
fast
fed?
enough to I just can't, nothing. And my mother, to her credit,
that's for the vegan dinosaurs. The vegan dinosaurs.
Yeah, they had, well, the
maybe that's what the dinosaurs were for, so we can introduce veganism.
Because look at how big and strong you can get. But my mother turned me on to dinosaurs being fake. It was the last thing. It was my last key to them. I was just like, dinosaurs are fake, Ma. I've seen dinosaurs. You have not. You haven't seen them. I was like, but you see the bones. You don't see the bones. You see clay. I was like, oh, that's true. That's true. But the reason she thinks that's fake, I realize, is that because she's so religious. She's not like a young earth Christian. She doesn't like think about it. She doesn't care about that. But like in her mind, God did not create that. I don't understand why he created mosquitoes, but clearly he did. But the dinosaurs, no way.
That's funny. That's
They're just too big.
I'm doing like a round table with like the Hush Hush guys and like a whole bunch of other shows, and they got like, I think like however many shows. There's like 12 of us, and then I think we're gonna split it up into different topics. And dinosaurs being fake is one of the ones they chose. They wanted to cover.
Great. Yeah, I did I have a blog post, like I did a show and I put all of my links in there, so I can shoot that to you if you want.
Oh, that'd be great. Yeah, for sure.
Oh yeah, it's excellent.
So like I never actually thought of your theory, and like it doesn't sound as fantastical, I'm sure, but like I actually do think, believe it or not, that's all you need is for people to be like, we're going to be responsible for billions of dollars in payouts from a fuck up. So we just need to spin some story to get out of it. Yeah,
I think that's what happened.
Damn.
Yeah. And because it would be like the reinsurer who would really eat it. It is a powerful financial interest out of England. Like, I don't know who. I think it would be a bunch of different, but a lot of it just feeds right up to the top, and like they can teeter on the edge. Like a Hurricane Andrew was such a massive claim, and everybody thought they had different insurance than they do. But those insurance companies have to get insurance from somebody else because they can't take undiversified risk like that.
Mm.
So I'm trying to find my. It's actually, my show is actually called Ron Paul Sex Dreams, but it was about dinosaurs. It's the Tower Power guys, like
Ron Paul Sex Dreams. Wow.
Somehow they twisted up my dinosaur thing with Ron Paul Sex Dreams. But anyway, yeah. So that was MH370. MH17 was also super fishy. I've been following the Ukraine thing from the beginning. We completely.
What do you think about that one? Like, just your opinion on that one.
When I was covering it in 2014, you had Victoria Nuland, the Assistant Secretary of State, on hidden audio and in videos that were not hidden, talk about how they were trying to affect a coup. They were giving the democratically elected president an ultimatum. She already talked about the 3 people that she was going to have take his place as a triumvirate. One would be the face job, one would be outside, one would be inside. Those people are still in place to this day. Tanyabuk, the Nazi, Klitsch, Klitschko, the mayor of Kiev, and for a while Yatsenyuk was the prime minister, or president, whatever. But he didn't last long. But she set it up to replace it with this U.S.-friendly government. She didn't care what anybody else said. That's when you got that fuck the EU thing. But that was, they promoted the fuck the EU clip, so you didn't hear her say, we are going to set this guy up and take him out. And then she came back and she did a meeting with Chevron, which was videotaped and put on YouTube, that said, we've spent $5 billion to soften up this regime and create unrest. And, you know, it's finally happening. Yay. And then there's another hidden audio that has Catherine Ashton, who is like the EU something or other, head of the EU, talking to the Estonian prime minister. And the Estonian prime minister says, you know, at the Maidan, they're discovering that the cops and the protesters were shot with the same bullets. She's like, oh. And the point of that is there were snipers shooting both sides to create a riot and to blame the other people. So they wanted to make it look like the democratically elected president was shooting civilians, like that he ordered the police to shoot civilians, but he didn't. And he definitely didn't. And they didn't. Nobody shot anybody except for these Israeli, I think they were Chechen snipers who later completely came out and told their whole story. They were like, they never paid us. And so they told the whole story, and they even described the American mercenary who trained them in great detail, named names and everything.
Oh, wow.
And so that was in like 2014. So they took out the president. And the first thing they did when they replaced him is make Russian as a language illegal. So then you had these two like states, oblasts, whatever, who couldn't even vote because they all spoke Russian. And of course they rebelled, and they've been asking Putin to help for 8 years. And finally he did. Sorry, I know that's a lot.
No.
I had espresso just for you.
Yeah, I made a cup of coffee before he came on too. Cause
I did that last time. I was like, it worked well last time.
yeah, it definitely works for me. I made a cup of coffee before you were coming on. I had smoked earlier, and I was researching stuff, and I was like, I got to wake up for Monica. I was like,
yeah, sorry.
yeah, no, you're not going to be a boring. You're not going to be a
fun part.
definitely not going to be a boring, quiet guest. Oh.
So I wish I could put up some of the comments, but I can't.
Oh yeah, I don't know.
have the
I'm not
power.
sure how that works.
You just click on it, but you don't have to. I mean, I find it impossible to like chat and also put the comments up. So.
Oh yeah, you know, to be totally honest with you, some of the few times that I've gone live recently, I couldn't even watch the chat because it screws me up.
No,
sometimes.
you can't. No, you can't. You can't because you have to have a conversation. Anyway,
Yeah.
so Ukraine, like I don't know what's up now. Like Putin is definitely going to unroll a central bank digital currency. People got vaxxed. Like he's not my hero. However, we totally undermined the government in Ukraine, and we should have been slapped down for it. And I can't believe we're just sending billions and billions and billions of dollars over there because it's the most corrupt place on earth. And I think that's how like Biden and John Kerry and all those guys, I think they might have taken out billions from that country along the way. Billions. Wow. That's what it's all about, in my opinion.
Well, how do you think that war is going to even end?
You know, that's a good question. There was a guy called Tejas in Donbass who said from the very beginning they've already got it like divided, and east of Kiev will go to Putin and west, and then you have to keep it neutral. Crimea has to go to Russia. But the whole thing was Putin had to take action, and I think they knew he had to take action because if Ukraine had joined NATO, that means that Russia being in Crimea, because they own Crimea now, but we say they don't own Crimea, we say they don't, and Ukraine says they don't. If Ukraine were part of NATO and Putin was occupying Crimea, that would start World War III like that minute, because Ukraine would say we have to repel this invasion. And then all 27 countries would have to go help them, which would be World War III. So you should be thanking Putin for not allowing World War III to start. But yeah, I think they'll just divide it up. Really? I think. I mean, what do you think?
I really have no idea where the hell this war is going to go. I don't even know honestly, I don't even know what the hell's really much going on. I mean, they say that stuff, we're winning. Supposedly there's leaks saying that they're losing. So, I mean, what the fuck?
I don't know, but I assume that they will keep this going until they've funneled as much money through there as they possibly can. I think what they do is like give them arms, not arms that they can use, not weapons that they can use, but weapons that have a high resale value on the black market. So they'll bring it all over. They'll say to Zelensky, like, he's like a pot dealer, and they'll say, like, put these in dime bags, give me, whatever, I'll split or whatever, get your distributor in other countries to buy it wholesale in bulk. And then so you give me half, you get to keep half. That guy marks it up for, individual sale. Yeah. So I think that's what they're doing, is just
We think there'll be a, and this is like, I guess this is probably why I ask, because like sometimes I just like, I don't know to what extremes this is going to be. Could it just be like business stuff and I guess, whatever fear and whatever social justice warring? Or is there actually going to be like going forward, actually like some serious still devastation too? Or at least what will be shown? Like, could they start actually really like blowing the fuck up out of that country? Like, could we really start seeing some crazy shit? Or is that never going to happen and or even close to it? Or is that never going to happen and this is all just a money siphon?
That starts to butt up against when, like, I wonder.
Not that I want to see that stuff happen. I just wonder, will it get there?
How high does the conspiracy go? And I'll say, like, there's a couple of different ways it can play. I'm wondering if, like, I've been wondering this for a while, if, like, the shift to the disease, like a disease structure for society versus a war structure for society. So society, like, you keep your people in check because they're afraid of the enemy. And that's why, like, football is war and sports are war and Putin is an enemy and all of that stuff keeps us on our side in our spot. Then I started seeing, like, football, they started fucking football up, and like they started not putting transgender in sports. Like, they're starting to make sports less warlike and more just like political. So I'm thinking, well, that reflects to me that they may be shifting the foundation, like our mental foundations for society itself, in which case it would not. So to germs, to like us versus them, to like humanity, you could either take humanity and fight aliens, or you can take humanity and fight germs, right? And then you get a world government because you have a world enemy. So if they're there, then they don't need to make this a hot war.
That's what I'm saying. Like, are they the WWF bad guy and that's all this is, or is it going to actually get screwed up? But even if it's
a hot war, I don't think that means that Putin isn't completely in on it. Like, even if it's a hot war, like, everybody likes war. Why doesn't Putin out 9/11 or out ISIS? Because he uses it himself.
That's like with a lot of people. I mean, I don't even know how to say this, but I mean, there's a lot of people, I guess, in the conspiracy world that do actually think Hitler was a good guy. And the thing with that is that, in my opinion, this is all WWF, and he was totally fine playing the bad guy anyway to put tons of fear into somebody. So, I mean, these people, I do not think if this is a game or some bullshit or a play, nobody's actually the good guy because it's still in the show.
I would say, because you just like, that was a big thing to say.
Well, but it's true. You don't even have to admit it. You don't even have to admit it, but that shit's getting fucking huge out of nowhere. I hate to say.
Yeah. There's a book. Yes, I know. It is fucked up because they rewrote history. Like, there's a book by a guy, Renee Wormser, who was on the Reese Commission to see if it was a House Un-American Activities thing. And the book is called The Myth of Good and Bad Nations. He's like, you always make it like we are the really good guys and the other guys are the really bad guys and whatever. But so when you over stylize, you're going to be able to go back and revise history because it was over stylized. Churchill said he was going to stylize it. He said he was going to make himself the good guy. There's a book by Guido Preparata called Conjuring Hitler. And he says, do you remember Life of Brian?
Yes.
Remember that?
Yeah, very vaguely. That's old shit.
Do you remember they had well, I wasn't allowed to watch it as a kid, so I only watched
I had to watch that when I got older.
When they all the like they had all these like messiahs on soapboxes and they were just like, the end is coming, the end is coming, the end is coming. And one of them was Jesus. So there was just so the way this Conjuring Hitler presents it, and this guy's super academic, so it's not silly like that, but he says there were a lot of people who were reacting to the hyperinflation in Weimar Germany and like the world, like the Versailles Treaty and all the injustices and the devastation from World War I. There were a lot of people radicals who wanted to go communist or whatever. So England, behind the scenes, picked one that would not tear down the upper strata of banking, someone who would respect the corporations and even the nobility to some extent or whatever. So they found somebody whose philosophy, fascism, whatever, was they could promote him, that was appealing to the people. It had the socialist element that would pay the people off, but it would not dismantle the highest rungs of the money power. And that is what they got with Hitler. And that's what he would say. So Hitler would not necessarily know that, you know, because then you get the other layer where they're like, you know, Hitler was like made a deal that with Israel. Is that even possible? I mean, Israel wasn't even a country then, but like he would let people leave, you know, he would let people leave if they were going to Israel. Yeah. Like that, like they negotiated a passage, but not everybody wanted to go to Israel, and that deal was not known. So you couldn't choose knowing that. Like you just had to, if you were, he would like grant all visas to Israel. I'm just like, I'm not saying that's true. I'm saying that's like one of the things that's talked about, but I have absolutely no idea if that's true. And I never saw any evidence of that. But I did enjoy the book Conjuring Hitler because it made sense.
Oh, I mean, like, listen, I do think even with World War II, that was as much propaganda as this fucking pandemic. I don't believe, like, that we know as much, you know, I think there was a lot of bullshit added in there. It's just, like, even what I'm getting at, as long as you were a player in the game, you're just as guilty as the rest of them.
Yeah, and World War I, too, like there's a book called The Hidden History of World War I, and there's a sequel called Prolonging the Agony. It reminded me very much of COVID. Like they took a lot for them to create the panic, and then they had to like keep creating the panic. And the same thing, I think World War I and World War II were just 100% a way of making sure Germany and Russia were never connected, because Russia had the resources, Germany was the industrial powerhouse, and England was just tiny. Like they could not compete with a united world island. And that's what it's always been about. That's what it's about right now, in my opinion. Right now. So there's some super big overview, but still, as we were saying before the show, I still don't know when it gets super like evil, you know, 9/11 Black Mass type stuff. Like, I still don't know if when they are kneeling before their altar, if they even think there is an actual Satan, or if it's just ritual, if it's real magic, or if it's just mind control.
Yes.
You know, the power of suggestion.
Total difference. Like, there's a total difference. Yeah.
Yeah. And I just don't know what it is. Like at that level, I don't know, but there is that level. And I don't know I don't know how high up people get who are not in that club. Like, I don't know if there's anybody at the upper echelon who is not absolutely like in the comments. It's like, yeah, Putin's just one of the gang. You know, I just don't, it seems to me, if you're not completely in on it at the highest levels, they just kill you.
No,
and now with the vaccine, like people are dying of heart attacks at like 55. Like they can do whatever. You wouldn't even bat an eye. Like you wouldn't even, it's like haystacking on a world scale.
Fuck. Yo, for real. I mean,
right? Like,
wow.
It's like, well, 1 billion people died. You think I killed that guy? He just died of a heart attack like everybody else. It's like, well, you know, you have those little ice darts that can give people a heart attack. It's like, well.
So do you think this thing with Ukraine and Russia? I mean, I know we're totally off the other topic, which is totally fine.
No, we're done with the
other topic. Do you think do you think it will go on much longer, or do you think that will like this is another thing that I find interesting? And again, like, I guess this is just sometimes I pay attention to things that people say and wonder, like, what's the play going on here? I have seen Trump say, this would not have happened if I was president because I had already spoke to Putin. Now, if this is still going on and he gets into being a president,
yes,
what happens then? Is Trump going to tell Putin fucking stop? Or is it going to keep going? Or are we going to have a problem with Russia? Because they won't stop. Like, this is just like, are we just being set up for another fucking bullshit story?
Yeah. I like, in my mind, that it's a play.
Yeah.
It's a play, and I don't always get to guess the last act. Like
we normally never do, really.
I don't get it right. So they're really good writers. Like, I can see what they're doing. I can see their end game. I know who's going to die in the end or whatever. Like, or I should say, I know what the moral of the story is going to be, but I just never know who's going to survive. Like, I never thought Trump was going to win the first time. And I didn't think he was going to lose the second time, because I knew they wanted civil unrest, and I knew the right is like law and order, you're not going to get civil unrest. So they just, in my opinion, completely made up January 6th. Like absolutely nothing happened that day. Zero, not one thing. But that I just, I didn't guess they would just make it up. And they just, like they just made it up. So.
Yeah. Yeah, I just wonder if like is this scene or this act almost over? Is it going to drag into a sequel?
Like, who do you think is going to be the next president? Like, are they going to do Biden again? It would be so great because then you get like a death in office.
You know what?
Not that I'm voting for that, but I just feel like he's old. Like chances are.
I don't know. Like again, like I said, I really only do. My wife puts on Fox every once in a while because she does like news for like an hour out of her day. If I really pay attention, I only really watch Spectrum 1, which is in my area. Mm-hmm. That's a very, very liberal news outlet. And they are even saying themselves and showing people on the street saying that Biden's too old and he can't be president anymore. So I don't know. Like I honestly, if the liberal news is shitting on Biden, I don't honestly don't think he's going to be president just because of that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, but if they put him in,
I think even the left would probably be like, "Come the fuck on, really?"
But don't you think that it would be like the perfect opportunity to slide Kamala in? Because think about what happened to England. A lot of times, like they go ahead of us. That Rishi Sunak absolutely did it would be like the Gerald Ford. He's like the Gerald Ford of England. Like he has the top job, but he was not really elected in any normal way. Like Gerald Ford wasn't even elected as vice president. The vice president, Spiro Agnew, resigned for some unrelated reason, and then Nixon resigned for Watergate. Like, is the likelihood of that, right? And they slotted in Gerald Ford, and he became so Rishi Sunak was similar. Like they just did a bunch of smoke and mirrors, and they got him in there, and he's like the first prime minister of color or whatever. I don't know. Of Indian origin. I don't know what they call it. But they could do that with Kamala. Just slide her in by taking Biden out, Yeah.
I don't know. I had honestly thought that it may end up, like you said, we normally never get the last act anyway, so we can't figure it out. So, to be Biden again, that would be just priceless. So who knows? It's probably possible. But I was honestly thinking it might end up being RFK versus Trump.
Wow, that would be cool.
And you know what the thing is, too, is that and one of the reasons why I have thought that is because I've already seen the Q-tards getting primed up for accepting RFK as president.
Nice.
So even if he beats Trump, it's still part of the plan. Fuck out of here.
He is a Kennedy. You can't deny that he's been vetted. And he was the...
And he's somebody that I've posted on video that actually said people who don't believe in the whole green shit should be fucking locked up.
See, that's the thing. It's the old bait and switch. So he gets you on the vax stuff.
Teresa's in our chat right now. From Spiritual Gangsters on her Instagram. She even has him admitting on fucking camera, on the microphone, I'm not Mr. Anti-Vax. That was a fucking thing. I am not Mr. Anti-Vax. I was given that name, I don't know for what reason.
Didn't his wife have a party during COVID that at his house no one was allowed in who wasn't vaccinated?
Yeah, it's like, where does this stuff come from?
RFK Jr., that would be interesting. That would be really interesting.
I don't know. That's a thought that I have had, but that's another thing too. We still have plenty of time. The last 3 months up to the election shit gets switched.
And I think, so I had this insight back in the day that like they get it down to like the people who they could take any of them. So I remember it was Ted Cruz with the final at Ted Cruz, Trump and Hillary. And I remember I noticed this, like every single solitary election since 2000 with the hanging Chad, which would definitely be my porn name if I were a guy, the hanging Chad. But ever since then, like I think they saw how brilliant having an illegitimate president would be for like disturbing the population. So every single solitary election has had controversy. And I remember thinking Ted Cruz was a Canadian citizen when he was born, and he was not a U.S. citizen. And both of his parents were Canadian citizens, and they did not have dual citizenship at the time. So he was absolutely not a viable. There would have been a constitutional crisis. That would have been an illegitimate thing. Hillary, it was all over the place, like illegal voters, undocumented voters, which as I live in California, it's absolutely true. And Trump, it was that dumb Russiagate thing was so weak. But in any case, they always have illegitimacy. But it made me realize that those three candidates, the people who were most in the running, all would have been totally fine with the powers that be. They were all, so you would have to take a different direction. And maybe they wouldn't have rolled out COVID if it had been Hillary, because I think like 80 million people would have gone to Washington and made her overturn the emergency order, but which they didn't do for Trump, which I wanted people to do, and they would not do it. And I was like, where is everybody now? So I think they take different tacks. So like maybe they'll have RFK there, maybe they'll have Trump, they'll have Biden, like they'll have people, DeSantis, who I think, although he would be my choice among like the front runners, I think is pretty clearly a CIA agent. So I would say like any one of those people will be fine. They just, it's like that. What was that Black Mirror book? Not Boulder Dash. Like, did you ever watch Black Mirror?
Oh yeah. I love that.
Yeah,
stuff.
the one where you get to choose the ending.
Oh, I don't remember. I don't know if I remember
Bandersnatch,
that.
I think it was called Bandersnatch.
Huh? No,
So
maybe
you
not remember
watch
that.
the show, and actually it interacts with you. You have to like press a button, and you're like, which cereal is this kid gonna eat? And depending on which cereal he eats, like the show goes in a different direction. And they had to like film so many different things. Like each show, each choice gave you something different.
Oh, it was like a Witch Way book.
What?
It was like those old Witch Way books when we were young.
Yes, exactly. but if you go and watch it like in every different direction, I'm pretty sure the ending, you always end up in the same place. And that's what I think about
Gotcha. Yeah.
presidential elections. Is that you can choose? They let you choose along the way. They don't care because they have a script for everything.
It's like the GPS when it's like, well, here's 3 different ways. Which way would you like to
Yes.
go? We're all going to get to the same spot. We're just going to have different scenery.
Exactly. There's like blue, red, purple, green. Like what? Choose your path. And there. Do you hear this kid singing? He's literally singing in the background. Like I get no respect. I get no respect.
Real quick, and then I'll let you go.
No respect.
Real quick, just a question, your opinion. Do you think when they start doing the debates, do you think anybody will throw in his face what just happened recently?
Technically, is this a test?
Well, technically,
what happened recently? It's like asking Sarah Palin if she likes the Bush Doctrine.
Well,
like,
no, I mean,
what do you mean?
Well, I mean, technically, I know he's not going to jail, but technically, if you go by what this case just happened yesterday, he's raped a woman, and he has got to pay for it. If you were a politician, do you think any of the politicians that are running against him might have the balls to bring that up? I'm just wondering if that will be thrown in his face.
What was the...
I'm not saying it's true or real or whatever. I have no idea, but...
I didn't follow it because I'm actually moving houses, but pause for a second. Do you know what court it was? Like, what
I think it was like civil court. That's the whole thing. That's why he's not going to get in trouble for it. He's just paying $3 million.
Yeah, you can just...
Yeah, but I'm just wondering, like, is anybody going to throw that in his face? Be like, well, you're running for president, and supposedly you got to pay someone $3 million for raping her in a fucking, department store.
See, I feel like that is, like I said before, like they start with something that's already in your head, like MH370, and they give you MH17. That's very similar, like the $3 million, the payoff, the civil court, as Bill Cosby, who I predicted would be overturned on appeal because he was absolutely wrongly convicted. Absolutely. It's really weird to defend Bill Cosby because, and my argument is they were Quaaludes, not roofies. So you might be too young to remember Quaaludes.
Oh, no, I remember those.
People like Quaaludes. Yeah, you don't have to slip somebody a Quaalude. Like you were definitely finding people.
A lot of people would be like, oh, yeah, just give him here.
People who would drive to Mexico because they stopped making Quaaludes here. So, yeah, but he didn't rape them. He seduced them. And that's different. And the statute of limitations was up and he paid that chick off and they weren't going to prosecute because there was a witness that said she was overheard planning to extort him for money. Like, so I would just say they are probably rewriting that all the stuff about Trump raping or having prostitutes, I absolutely do not believe. I as a New Yorker, I don't know if you remember following him. He's a major germaphobe and he's very cheap. So he's never doing prostitutes for both of those reasons. And I mean, there's no way around that. And
for both of those reasons.
Yeah. And
If you're cheap and you're a germaphobe, you're definitely not touching a prostitute.
No prostitutes. And you're not paying one to pee on a bed you're sleeping in, for Lord's sake. Yikes. Anyway. So, and he liked seducing women. Like, I read a book about him called Trump Nation. It was good. And it was like a guy was a biographer, but it like became unauthorized because the guy was like not doing what they wanted, I guess. I don't remember exactly, but Trump said, women like me. Like, you think they don't. They like me because I'm rich. He's like, but a woman can't really sleep with you if she doesn't like you, unless she's an actual professional prostitute. Like, unless there's something in her mind that, and it is true. Like, it's like if somebody grosses you out, it's intolerable for them to crawl all over you. So so like that was where he felt okay with it gave him an ego boost to sleep with these women because he was seducing them. And I just, it just does not fit his profile to rape. And I feel like that's so. My guess is that, well, if he's abdicating, if it's civil court and he's willing to just give the money to keep that narrative going, because that keeps the newspapers, that was another reason I thought he was going to win, because who else can keep the 24/7 news cycle occupied without any actual content whatsoever? I mean, he is the most masterful reality star who ever existed. Like, it's unbelievable. And how they would fire a guy like that, I just, it's crazy. I can't imagine he would come back, because as my mother says, after all, he's a man. He's a real man. He wants to play golf and relax. I mean, it is just, I don't care how much you're going to pay him to do this. I don't think he's going to do it. So.
Yeah, I was just wondering, coming down the line, is there... I mean, because Trump will throw outlandish and say crazy things, and it's like now they might have their own ammo to throw at him, and could this really be a shit show?
Yes, and it would, and I even think that Billy Bush thing where he was in the trailer and he said the stuff about grabbing a pussy or whatever. I think that was fake. I think he did that on purpose to be fake. I think the controversy is important to the whole overall show.
Sometimes just your name being mentioned over and over again is all you need.
And don't they do that in reality shows? Don't they create problems? Yeah.
Yes, very well said. And then I think we'll wrap it there. I just wanted your opinion of that, and just, who knows what we got to look forward to going forward with that stuff. Thank you very much again for coming on. I have a great time with you. I did on the Spiritual Gangsters, and I had another great time with you now. I really appreciate you coming on my show. Let everybody know where they could find your stuff.
Super fun. Thank you so much. If you want to hear interviews, but the deep dives are the best, when they really take something and pull it apart, like 15-minute cities I did recently. I did the FTX, the collapse of that crypto thing. Those are deep dives. You can find Deep Dives with Monica Perez on your favorite podcasting platform, and you can get all those show notes, like my dinosaur show notes and all the links, all this stuff on monicasdeepdives.com. But I'm also on rockfin.com/deepdives.
Awesome.
So you got that going for you.
Nice. I think I have 2 of your links on the bottom already going live.
Great.
So I'm assuming everything's probably within those 2 links.
Yes.
Definitely check out her stuff. And if you did not hear her story on the Spiritual Gangsters, I definitely suggest to go back and check that out. It was a little bit more, I think, personal how she got into this, what woke her up. It was a little story about Monica and how she became the pod mother. So
I don't want to rip that off. That is, Adam Curry is the pod father, but I have had some spinoffs and they do call me the pod mother. So
I like it. I love it.
I'm going to take that. Why not? If there isn't a pod mother, I'll be the pod mother.
Yes, I love it. Great stuff. That is the end of another NY Patriot episode. Thank you all for jumping in the chat. That was a decent amount of people for this time, and thank you for all the comments, and thank you guys for even bringing up that Twilight Zone. I thought that was weird as hell. That's why I do it. And until the next one, everybody be well. Later.